Whiteout in Britain this winter. The unusually heavy snowfall put enormous strain on the country's power system as demand soared for heating fuel and electricity. This time the system survived, but the future looks a lot bleaker.
The UK government's own figures suggest there could be a 3,000 megawatt-hour shortage of supply by 2017. Unless significant progress is made to produce more power, that could hit 7,000 megawatt-hours each year by 2025, equivalent to an hour-long power cut for half of the country.
Our job is to keep the lights on, not to talk about them going out. And really all our investment plans are geared towards making sure that we play our part in doing exactly that.
Unlike its European neighbours, Britain stores very little fuel, around a fortnight's supply in normal conditions. That compares to 99 days in Germany and 120 in France. Experts say the UK has become complacent, relying on the ease of extraction from local fields.
The continental shelf was one enormous great storage facility, and that's what we've tended to use it for the last however many years it is. And it is still there, and we are still using it to that extent.
But North Sea oil and gas production peaked at the start of this century. What's left is increasingly hard to access and remains a finite source. Britain was a net exporter of gas until 2004. Now the UK imports around half the gas needed for domestic use and to power its 40 gas-fired power stations. Recent squabbles between Russia and the Ukraine have shown how vulnerable Europe is to disrupted supplies. In a bid to secure those supplies, the UK is diversifying its sources of gas, importing from as far afield as Qatar and Trinidad.
Our strength and security lies in diversity. We still have a significant proportion of our gas coming from our own resources in the North Sea. We're connected by pipeline to Norway. We're connected by pipeline to continental Europe, which gives us access to gas from Russia and other places. We've got 3 new liquefied natural gas terminals, which allows us to import natural gas from virtually anywhere in the world in liquid form.
Alternative sources are scarce. By 2015, 4 of Britain's 10 ageing nuclear power stations will have to close. Even if there were new ones in the pipeline, nuclear stations can take decades to build. Extending the life of UK plants is also not an option.
There is a technical reason to close down the old nuclear plants because the advanced gas-cooled reactors have graphite cores and those are being aged continually by the radiation, and they will actually run out of life at some point, and they have to be closed, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Nuclear also faces considerable public opposition, but in recent years, fears over climate change have added coal power to the blacklist.
Some of our members wanted in recent years to build new coal-fired power stations to avoid over-dependence on gas, but the government has now restricted the type of coal-fired plant that you can build. It's got to have something called carbon capture attached to it, and much more of that in years to come. And that has made it, at the moment, impossible to go ahead with coal.
Meaning severe losses in this sector as well.
A lot of the coal-fired power plants are being closed because they're not fitting the latest clean-up equipment, because they are old. But the reason that they're actually closing down is because their running hours are limited and they've reached the end of those running hours.
Like its European neighbours, Britain is under pressure to reduce emissions, aiming to generate 30% of its electricity from renewable sources by the end of the decade. That's up from just 5% today. Although Britain is pushing ahead with plans to generate power from wave and tidal energy and is investing in wind farms, it is significantly behind some of its European rivals, where the current average is already 14% from renewable sources. And relying on wind brings its own challenges.
Wind is not predictable. You don't know when the wind is going to blow and when it isn't going to blow. So you're always going to need to have backup plans ready to step in when the wind doesn't blow. But you don't know how frequently that plant is going to be needed, what sort of return it's going to be able to earn in the market, and therefore the investment case for a plant like that is really very difficult to make.
The UK's energy regulator is calling for a $320 billion investment in the industry to secure energy supplies and cut carbon emissions, which some industry experts warn, given the UK's history, could be tough to achieve.
Everyone around the world is looking for more energy investment. The fear all the time is that government can change the rules and you could invest in something and get it wrong. Energy policy changes. In 2003, the UK government could hardly utter the words nuclear power. Just 3 years later, and they're now strongly in favour of new nuclear power.
Others are more optimistic. UK politicians are listening.
My guess is that pretty soon after the election, something like the Emergency Committee on the Electric Power Industry will be formed, and it will look very seriously at what's going on. I think that the most encouraging thing is that we're getting from a range of different sources the realisation that things are not right. You can't carry on as we are.
Which could be a very dark and cold prospect indeed.